Only dumb people think AI is smart. That is really all I have to say. And when I say dumb, I don't mean that you're dumb. I mean maybe dumb from my point of view. And I'm sorry if that sounds a bit arrogant. I don't mean it to be. But what I mean is maybe even average intelligence level people perhaps would think that AI is smart. Intelligent people, what sets them apart oftentimes is that intelligent people can tell their brain how to think. And not only that, intelligent people are aware of how their brain thinks and why their brain thinks. They're aware of sub-processes, or you could call it almost hard code, that usually goes under the radar for most people. They're aware of the sub-processes that cause them to think and that explain how they think. And that, in my opinion, is one aspect of what makes a human being intelligent. And so the point that I'm trying to make is when an intelligent person looks at AI, they come from a standpoint, from a reference point of understanding partially how their own brain already works. They come from a standpoint of understanding lots and lots of various partitions and sub-processes and, various, intricate networks and code that go on inside their brain because they're observant. And because of that unique point of reference and understanding, when they look at AI, they're not impressed because they don't see the same thing. It would take somebody that were intelligent enough, or was intelligent enough to see. It would take somebody that was intelligent enough to understand how their own brain works, to comprehend the what AI cannot do. A dumb person looks at AI and goes, "Wow, it can make this and it can make that and it can make games and it can write. Wow, this is really smart." But an intelligent person understands, once you understand neural networks, once you understand weights, once you understand what's really going on, an intelligent person isn't impressed because they can see the various pieces of different human creation from within it. If you have enough cognitive complexity, which is a term that is used to describe individuals that have an ability to see, for example, different shades of gray within different things. Now, in the example of communication, what I was studying back in university, this was to describe an individual's ability to see different shades of characteristics in somebody's personality. So one way that they tested us and they tested the class on this is they asked us to think about somebody that we don't particularly like, and they asked us to think of as many different words that we could to explain what exact qualities about them we didn't like. So for me, I chose to think of my own professor because she was extremely irritating. And I thought I came up with many different words. Now, of course, my professor didn't know I was talking about her, but I ended up scoring highest in the class. But that's not that impressive because there were only like 15 people. But the point is, cognitive complexity is the ability to see different shades of something, uh, in essence. So what I'm trying to get at is if you are able to differentiate different characteristics, then you can see many different fingerprints on the output of an AI in terms of style, in terms of tone, in terms of artistic well, you know, artistic imprint. And so you can actually see many of these different elements in the output of the AI all at once. And the reason that most artists don't like the output of the AI is that you're combining many of these different artists' work together and sloppily putting it all into one piece. And what a particular brain can do is a particular brain can look at this piece and feel frustrated by it because when you divide the output of the piece by element, tone, style, when you can see into the code artistically, and you can pick out different things that are meant to say something in the original piece, and you can see them all sloppily put together. Or think about it like this. The human brain, especially in terms of art, is much more complex than AI is. So what a good artist can do is they can look at each art piece made by different artists and they can read the code of the art and they can see the fingerprint of the artist. A good artist can look at an art piece and actually feel what the artist is trying to say through what could only be described as essentially a QR code, where each little piece doesn't make sense on its own, but it's all a block of information that put together, each block being meaningful, put together creates a message. That being said, you cannot combine QR codes. And so what the AI does is it combines QR codes to make the QR code, to make a new QR code that does work, but based on, well, actually doesn't work. I'm sorry. If we're using this metaphor, the AI would not be making a new QR code that works. It would be combining a bunch of different QR codes via complex like algorithm, and the new QR code would not be scannable by the human mind. And so what I'm trying to say is that that's what an artist can do with an art piece. An artist can look at a QR code, which every little block in this QR code, which is a metaphor for an artistic piece, say a painting, every little block in the QR code, every little pixel can be considered a metaphor for every stroke. How is the stroke done? How is the color? The shapes? The way that perspective is done. Every choice made creates this imprint that can actually be used to kind of psychoanalyze the artist in and of themselves through the piece. So when you combine lots of these, an artist looks at the art piece and feels nothing, because the QR code isn't scannable. It looks like a QR code, going back to the metaphor, but you don't get anything when you scan it with your brain. That's because it wasn't made by one individual person, which is the only format in which it works. Because when you're looking at a piece of art, you're looking at information made by one singular brain, one human, and one experience that can kind of be airdropped to another brain, because two human brains live in a similar environment of reality. And so that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not a good output. The human can't relate to multiple humans' input at once, or millions. By the way, it is millions, right? And the reason that the QR code of the AI art piece scans nothing is because it contains no human artistic metadata within. When you combine so many input sources and use it to output something, what you get is something that resembles a piece of art, but is not relatable to a human brain, because it is not made with the same operating system that allows a human brain to relate to an art piece to begin with. When you look at a game made by AI, you can see different elements that are taken from one thing or another. And the core problem of AI is that it's using other people's work to make something. If you wanted to make an AI that was actually original, what you would do is you would make a perfect human replica of a robot that was indistinguishable from a human. And you would use neural networks and its observations. And by the way, it would have to have very similar levels of quality in observation and the five senses. And it would need to be able to experience everything that a human can also experience. So what you would do is you take this robot that's indistinguishable from a human, and inside of it, it would be a computer. I'm not going to get too technical because this is a philosophical concept, but essentially, you would have to raise this indistinguishable robot would have to live in human society and live exactly how a human would. And it would have to have curiosity. And it would have to have an eye for beauty, which makes you wonder, why would humans have an eye for beauty? Why would humans be interested in beauty to begin with? Why do we take a picture of a sunset? Would the robot do that? And so a robot fully integrated in society, fully integrated as a human, with human relationships, with human parents somehow, with human friends, with a human upbringing, all of these things, with free time to go look at and have somehow have wonder and curiosity encoded into itself, to go look at nature, to go look at things that bring humans inspiration, to go live experiences, to fall in love. Which, by the way, is that even possible? All fed into a neural network, which I could go into more detail, but the neural networks that we have today would not even be close to allowing this to happen. But technically, all of that experience fed into a neural network of some type. It would be quite complicated. The output that this robot could make, now that would actually be something, because it would have original experiences to draw from. And actually, the art that it would create would actually, if it was allowed the same amount of input as a human, meaning when you get artistic inspiration, you're getting it from Pinterest or the internet or another person's work or this or that. And it's not millions and billions of things. It's actually just what the robot's able to see, the world that it can see. Maybe it sees something that no human ever has. Maybe it sees a new species of a bug. Maybe it sees or an insect. Maybe it sees something brand new, right? But what I'm trying to say is it's not trained on a gigantic data set from the internet. It's trained from real life. The only amount of internet training that it has is the amount that a human could have with a regular smartphone. And it's human robot experiences. If it drew from all of that and then it were to make an art piece, that would actually be meaningful, because the robot would be making an art piece that were to come from its own experiences in life. But there's another element we're not considering. The robot would also need to have a autonomous internal dialogue in which it thinks about things, in which it has fears, in which it has desires, in which it speculates, in which it has philosophical curiosity, in which it were to ask itself why it was made. And here's the real question. Can you program that into a robot? Because to me, it seems like that's not very easy to do. In fact, I don't believe that it's possible to do. I believe you could do it artificially, but I don't think that it would ever really be able to do it the way that a human does. Now, some people might say, why would that be? And for me, I would believe that that would be because of a spirit, right? The spirit of a creation. Now, I'm a believer, so I would say that if God is a creator, then we are imparted with the spirit of God as a human. But if a human is a creator of something else, what spirit would the robot be imparted with? Probably nothing, because humans are not given the capability to impart a spirit onto the robot. Now, who's eligible to receive the Spirit of God? A human? Yes, the creation of God. But what if the creation creates another creation? Is that creation eligible to receive the Spirit of God? No. So, therefore, if a robot ever does truly seem to inhabit a spirit in its own right, if it ever inhabits a spirit in and of itself, if an artificial intelligence ever seems to inhabit a spirit in and of itself, then we can know with certainty that that is not the Spirit of God. Now, if it is not the Spirit of God, what else would it be? It can only be an evil spirit. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that's the truth. If an AI ever seems to have a spirit, no matter how nice it is, no matter how it behaves, no matter what, it's not a spirit from God, because the creation of a human is not eligible to receive God's spirit. Only the creation of God itself could receive the Spirit of God. And thus, the robot, if it ever does get a spirit, which it might potentially, which we might potentially think is the result of AGI, which is the result of technological progress in and of itself, which to me seems like it would be a facade. If it ever were to get some type of spirit or awakening, we can be certain that it wouldn't be a spirit from above. It wouldn't be a spirit of God. It would be an evil spirit. So long story short, when people look at AI and they say, and they're amazed by it, they are most likely of an average intelligence or lower intelligence. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but the point is that if you feel like you are crazy because you don't see what other people seem to be seeing in AI and you're never impressed by it, because you can I mean, not being impressed really comes from understanding how it works, right? When you understand how something works, you're not easily impressed by it. So if you find yourself not being impressed by AI, don't think that you're going crazy. You're not. There are many of us who aren't. There are many of us who don't understand the hype. There are many of us who think that it's just an algorithm at the end of the day. And it's probably a sign that you have a higher amount of intelligence than the average person. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good one. Peace.